Rachel,
Hi,
how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm digging the outfit. Very colorful,
Thank you. I'm a very colorful person. I'm going to turn
as
down the
as
lights.
expected, right?
Yeah. Basically, think of me as like a tropical bird.
Well, hold on a second. That's like the coolest staircase I've seen in a
Oh,
long time. That is incredible. Is this your place?
yeah. So I just got a house like about 2 weeks ago. So
That's
it's
beautiful.
kind of weird being in a one place for so long.
I love it. Yeah, we're gonna talk all about that. You ready to get started?
I guess so. Yeah,
You ready
I'm
to do this? I'm super excited to have you on. There's a lot of questions I got for you. The first one I have, Rachel, is did I just see you won like was it Timepiece Artist of the Week? Is that what that was?
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
congratulations. Can you explain exactly what that is?
So they nominate an artist every week for just I think just what they've been doing in this space. And last week I was able to raise over $15,000 to be donated, excuse me, for Syrian and Turkey earthquake relief funds. And so, yeah, they just gave me like recognition for that. And I'm like really honored, but I'm also like, this isn't just me. Like this is like the hundreds of people who rallied behind my fundraiser effort. So honestly, it's a accolade for my community in Web3
That's
for
amazing.
definitely.
Congratulations for
Thank
people
you.
who listen to this. If they wanted to contribute, how can they contribute?
So right now I've stopped it, but I am going to be starting to do monthly donation things where people can donate via PayPal, Venmo. I mostly sell artwork as NFTs, so typically Ethereum based.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to sort that out going forward because it is something I've always done in my past, work in humanitarian and volunteer work. And I really do want to bring that over to what I do in NFTs and Twitter.
Wow. Congratulations. That's first of all incredible. And second of all, bravo. I appreciate you helping with such like a great cause and great causes. I was just in Turkey last year, actually, almost a year ago. Not as far east in Turkey and nowhere near Syria, but special place. Turkey is definitely a special place. It was, have you ever been? I know you travel a lot. Have you ever been there?
Is unfortunately one place I have yet to go. I've always been wanting to go, but the Middle East is a place that I haven't yet explored as much as I want.
Yeah, it's a more beautiful landscape than I really imagined, honestly. It was a trip that one of my best friends planned and he asked me to go to. And I was just like, okay, sure. I'm a planner, I'm a scheduler. I like to know what I'm doing and where I'm going. And I said yes. I did a little bit of research, but I was like, whatever, man. Like you're planning the trip, you're taking care of all the excursions and all that stuff. Let's do this. I'm just along for the ride. I was not expecting like the landscape to be that beautiful. It was like, wow, place after place. We went to Istanbul first and then Cappadocia. I'm forgetting the name of the place with like the ruins and all that stuff. We went swimming with in the columns and stuff. It was like absolutely amazing. The history there is one of a kind. I'm sure you'll get there at some point, but it's definitely worth it. I think you'll be blown away and you'll capture a lot of that beauty. I'd be excited when that happens. So
Oh my gosh, now I want to go like stalk your gallery. I need to see those images.
yeah, some of them are posted. Some were posted on my personal Instagram. Some were posted on my website. I am ryanmcguire.com. But yeah, so I'm basically like I consider myself like an amateur photographer, whereas you are legit, you are the real deal. You have time giving you awards and everything. No, you're shaking your head. No, your stuff is awesome, but your stuff has a twist to it too, right? Because you have like NFTs and AI and stuff. So we'll dive into that momentarily, but let's get to know you a little more. So like, where are you at right now? And then tell me about like your history of how you got into photography.
Wow. Okay. So I'll try to keep this pretty short, which will be okay because I've only been a photographer for about 3 years.
That's
Uh,
it? Oh my
yeah.
God. Wow. Your stuff is awesome. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So when you say you're a beginner, I'm like, no, I'm like a baby beginner.
Mhm.
Um, I was lucky enough that when I got out of college back in 2018, I was able to get a job that helped me pay off all my student debts and my loans and all of that fun stuff. And I am really grateful for it. I learned a lot, but I was working for people who had so much money. I was looking back at my year with working with them, and I was like, I don't want to be working for these people. I don't want my life to be of service for these kinds of folks. Um, Not that I was mistreated, just not the scene I wanted to be in. I was like, I want to travel. So I sold everything, I packed everything up, and in 2019, I got a camera and I just set out with a backpack to go around the world. Was able to get my first job working on a food documentary down in South America that first month in January. I was in Peru, met a woman. She was amazing, got some really, really cool experience. I was barely out of auto mode. But since then, I've just kind of pushed and was lucky enough to have, that nest egg of finances to travel and to get that experience, because I know a lot of people are like, well, why didn't you go to school? I was like, when I was looking for a job, everyone wants experience. They don't
Yeah.
care if you have a degree in whatever. They want you to actually have done the work. And so I was like, I'm going to skip one of those steps, one very expensive step, and just go do it. So that year was actually really crazy. And that's kind of like set off everything else.
Did you have a passion for photography before you did this? Or were you just like, I want to travel and I guess I'll buy a camera just to kind of document things?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of the latter. So
Wow.
I mean, I took photos on like, a simple point and shoot camera when I traveled, but it wasn't really anything. Um, I've traveled a lot before. So I've traveled solo on my own since I was like about 12, 13 years old
Holy
internationally.
shit. 12
Yeah.
years old.
Yeah, and my parents have been very supportive of being a citizen of the world, of learning um, from the world and not just in the classroom. And so, yeah, I've always traveled, and I was a travel specialist for a really big company, and so yeah, I just wanted to travel, and so that's why I was like, well, photography is kind of cool. That's something you can do on the road. I'm gonna call myself a photographer. So there I was.
Oh my God. What camera did you end up buying first? I'm curious.
My first one was a Nikon D850.
How did you settle on that one?
I think it's because I saw it, and if anyone has seen the Nikon D850, they know it's a beast.
Mm.
And I'm 4'11". I'm tiny. I'm Asian. I'm a woman. Most people look at me and they kind of like keep looking or look over me. And so I wanted to get the biggest, baddest camera I knew.
Sounds like
So,
some
you
BD
pull out
energy
a
right there.
D850, everyone's like, ooh, that's a good camera. Like, obviously, you're a professional because of your camera. So,
Mm.
I've actually, I've actually gone through Nikon cameras, Canon,
Mm.
Olympus. Haven't touched Fuji because I'm not that like handsy, but now I shoot on Sony.
Okay. I was going to ask you, this is something I ask like all my photographer buddies and friends, the people I talk to is like, what do you shoot with? And can you tell me why? Why Sony?
Yeah. So as I was traveling throughout 2019, the D850 and all of the glass of Nikon was extremely heavy.
Mm.
And what I do a lot is I backpack a lot. I go out into like super remote places with my backpack. And being so tiny, it was a lot of weight. And so I actually my partner at the time, he was a British man who was leading tour expeditions in Peru. We were doing a lot of like exploring in Cusco regions and the Andes Mountains. And he had a Sony. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so nice.
Mm.
How small and compact. And when I started looking into Sony, I realized like their mirrorless systems are incredible.
Mm.
Like their glass is amazing. They're putting in the work. I love what they're doing with like the Sony Alpha program, Sony Female Alpha program. Um, and it was a vibe of a company that I could really support. And
Okay.
so I switched over and I haven't looked back since.
Awesome. Yeah, I was planning on getting to these questions much later in the video about the details and the equipment you use. But while we're on it, yeah, I was genuinely curious because at some point I'll want to upgrade. It's old school now. Canon T2i. I got that like a decade ago, kind of an intro SLR camera. I still occasionally use it. It's definitely captures some great moments for me. But I won't say it's not a beast. I won't say it's a beast, but at the same time, like when you travel and go all these places, especially for fun, like I want to capture great photography. It's a pain in the ass, right? To like change your lenses, and especially when going hikes and stuff, you got to carry that backpack, which I do occasionally. I will say, so do you travel alone to these places? That definitely makes it much easier to capture photos, right? You go on your own time. You don't have people like, come on, man, let's go. We gotta
Yeah.
get moving. How many pictures do you need, man? You know,
Exactly. Like, what are you waiting for? The sky's fine. Like,
right.
no.
Right. I can tell, like, I can't wait to get into some of these photos and photography trips that you've taken, because I could tell by your photos, you clearly find a great location and you wait it out and you can wait for the perfect moment. I have a big appreciation for that. But I also have a really big appreciation for how much you've traveled at such a young age. That's absolutely incredible. That's something I wish I did when I was younger. I didn't really know any better. My parents took me on trips and stuff, but it wasn't anything across the world. We didn't do anything like that. And the more, the older I've gotten, the more I realize like how much I absolutely love that. And starting to travel the world and great experience. You just can't top that, right? Like you said, like education and school, there is no better experience than the school of life and traveling around the world. So pretty incredible. What's been like one of the most scenic places that you've been for photography purposes?
I, I I get this question a lot, but first I wanted to say the Canon R5 mirrorless camera is incredible. I was shooting
Okay.
on it simultaneously with the Sony just because I was interested in it. I'm kind of like Goldilocks when it comes to cameras. I have to try everything.
That's
um,
awesome.
and it's incredible.
I'll
Truly,
look
like if
into it.
you stay with Canon, it's such a good one. It handles really well, the screen, the colors, incredible. But yeah, I won't go too far into that, but I definitely recommend that one.
Awesome.
And then to answer your question, what is my favorite country? Oh my gosh, this is
Or
like,
favorites. You can name a few that come to the top of
oh
mind that was
gosh,
just
this
like
is
these
so
jaw
hard
dropping moments. Yeah, go for it.
because I I love every place I've gone because they're so incredibly different and they were at different parts of my life. So I love India because I was 17 years old. I took a year off from college and I went to go volunteer for half a year in the slums of India. And it
Wow.
was hard. It was super hard. Probably one of my most challenging trips. But I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what I wanted to do in life and about people. And that was an incredible experience. Recently, I would say my favorite places that I went to last year, because I went to a lot. My favorite places last year was Australia.
Hmm.
I was able to capture one of the rarest natural phenomenon I've ever experienced in my life out in the back channels of Australia last October, which was amazing. Um, and it far outseeded my expectations of what a country was. I thought I would die just from every single critter out there, but I didn't actually see that many like deadly animals, which I was glad and not glad.
What was this phenomenon? You're keeping me waiting here.
Oh, sorry. I talk about it so much that I feel like everyone knows. So Australia used to be the driest country in the world, but this past year has been an El Nino year, which means it has turned to become the wettest country. They've had more rain in like a week than they typically do in an entire year,
Wow.
which means if you look at like the Google Maps of Australia, the whole middle of it, basically all of it, like 90% of it, looks desert. It's bone dry. It looks like Arizona, but worse on the Google Maps. And with all of this record-breaking rain, it it has actually caused a bunch of dormant grasses and wildlife and foliage to spring up
Hmm.
out there. It's actually really incredible because what has happened is life that hasn't been seen in like over 100 years is now being seen. And when I went, it was like such teething with vibrant colors and so many bungee like green parrots flying everywhere and just like oh my gosh, it was magical. And the guy I was with, Robert Downey, his handle is Intrepid Photo.
I was gonna say Iron Man.
No, he gets that a lot. But he was like, this is not normal. This is totally
Wow.
not normal. This is so not normal. And what you can see if you go to like my Instagram, kind of you scroll down, you can see some drone images and footage of some rainbow land. And it looks like petri dishes. Everyone's like, what am I looking at? And I'm like, you're looking at ancient waterways that have suddenly been flooded with water and then springing forth in vibrant colors that you hardly ever see in nature. Well, you see it a lot, but not really in landscape macro sense. So
So
yeah.
I'm looking at your Instagram right now, and for people that are listening, it's the traveling elf. And what? Okay, so you have a lot of beautiful photos. I don't even know where to stop to look. So the photos that you're talking about, holy crap! Okay, I think I just found it. I'm seeing one September 6th. Is this one?
Yep. Yep. If you keep scrolling
Wow.
down, there's some video footage. It might be also in my reels, where you can get a better sense. All the little yellow dots you see, those are trees, just to give you a sense of scale.
Hold on, is this is hold on a second. So this is it?
Yeah. Yeah, those are the
Wow.
back channels of Australia.
Okay, I
So
thought
me and
this was
Robert,
fake.
no, no. So that's real. Me and Robert are like one of the few, like handful of people who were able to get out there. It was a 40-plus hour car ride, really sketchy in some places. I thought we would die. Um, uh,
What?
we were only a few handful of people who were able to get out there and document this. And like the rest of the year, it's been just utterly devastated with flooding. I'm not sure that many people have been able to get back out. Definitely not what I've seen. So I like to think my images and footage is very rare.
That is beautiful. That's for people listening to this. It's the traveling elf on Instagram. If you scroll down to September 10th, 2022, it's like a psychedelic landscape. I have never seen anything like this in my life. That's incredible.
Yeah,
Holy
no
cow.
no
Wow.
one's seen it. No one's seen it in over 100 years. And of course, 100 years ago they didn't have colored drones
This
ability.
is
So
this, I mean, this is absolutely unbelievable. And I'm scrolling through your timeline here and the places you've been. What the hell? Like, what the hell? How do you I got so many questions. One, how do you get here? How do you pick the places? Like, do you fund yourself now because of your art and photography? Because I think that's the first thing that comes to my mind personally. I imagine a lot of people is like, well, shit, I want to travel. I want to be a photographer. I can't afford it. I can't do all that. So I don't know where to start with this whole thing, but I'm curious to know how you make this work, how you make this happen, and then how you plan where you go.
yeah, so that's really complicated. But I think what I can tell people is one, in the beginning, you are going to have to put up money. Like I was fortunate enough to have a job where I could, you know, not work for a couple of months and travel. Travel is not as expensive as you think, but it does require money.
Mhm.
When you're traveling, and this is where I've been lucky, where I've traveled quite a bit in my life beforehand, so I know how to travel better in a way that's more sustainable for a budget. But most people, when they travel, they spend on the nice hotels, they spend on like, car service, they spend on like all of this stuff. I don't. So what I do is I, reach out to contacts and things like that, or I try to do it my own and do a lot of research. There's a lot of planning involved. Especially in 2019, it was basically two full-time jobs just to learn how to travel and to travel as much as I did.
Wow.
But to go into the line of how do I make money? The first year, 2019, no money. Like I was paid on like in cash for like the odd jobs, but I was looking at it as just learning experience. I was investing in my own experience and my own career as a photographer to get things under my belt, to get connections, to get into the places that I really wanted to go. And how I picked those places, it's very basic. It's do I like the food?
I was not expecting that. I thought you were going to say like you saw inspiration on Instagram. You're like, I want to go there.
No, so I actually stay away from Instagram for the most part. I've traveled way before Instagram influencers were a thing, and I've been to many of those places that I don't have photographs of because I wasn't a photographer.
Hmm.
Um, So whenever I see a lot of these like youngins who are like, oh, these like super epic shots, I'm like, it's there before it was even cool to be
Mm,
there. Like,
hmm.
and so like for me, I guess I'm like more of like a old lady in that regards, where I'm not an influencer. I'm not one of those people who wants to go viral. I go to these places because I'm curious. I pick these places because I want to learn about these people, about how they live, on what they value, taste their food, like learn their history and their mythologies, and delve into life that's not my own. Um, that's why I travel, is really to just live and connect with people all around the world. So photography is just kind of my way of communicating back to people back home and stuff like that, and to express what I've experienced in the world. So yeah, I think I'm kind of rambling now, but how I now recently, all last year, all in 2022, I was able to basically fund my entire traveling year with the sales of NFTs.
Mm.
And that is through my art, it's through flipping, not so much anymore. But I've been able to sell my art on a global scale and have people support me all around the world. And what I also, just lastly, what I want to say is that a lot of my experiences last year, like Australia, I was invited to go to Tahiti, Moria, to photograph humpback whales, uh, instances like that. Those were all invitations from people who met me, who learned about me through NFTs. And that's through online Twitter and, what I've been doing over there. And it's been really incredible. Like, I never would have thought in my essentially third year of photography, I would have ever been able to say, I was invited to go photograph humpback whales and my costs were covered.
Unbelievable. If you ever can't make any of those invitations, feel free to be like, hey, I know a guy that will
Okay.
probably say yes with his good old Candon rebel. But he'll enjoy himself, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Let's start kind of back when you said odd jobs and stuff. When did you like start getting some money for some of your photography? At what point was that?
So I guess the biggest hurdle was 2020 March, when COVID was a slam dunk, hit you in the face till you're crying in a sad hump on the floor. I at that year I had just come back from Antarctica. I had just broken up with my then partner. I was feeling super, super down and just horrible with my art. I was just like, I can't make this work. I can't, like, I'm not getting paid enough to like keep this to be sustainable. I'm going to go back to the States. Maybe, this COVID thing, I think it's like a Zika virus. Maybe this is just like, a sign of the universe that I need to go, become legit in the USA. So March, I was able to get a house before the crazy market, and I settled some roots in Portland, Oregon. But then everything shut down. And I was in a brand new city, had no friends, had no
Mm,
connections. I had no idea what I was doing, and I couldn't even go outside. Um,
that's
like, it
hard.
was crazy. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start a photography business. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. So I did. And what I did was I started with just reaching out to real estate people for portrait work. Never done portraits before in my life, had no idea what I was doing. Never really run a business, had no idea what I was doing. And I made a lot of mistakes. But somehow, for some reason, I was able to push through, really dedicate time to building up a business. And I went from charging my first client $200 for those head portraits. And within a month, I signed on my first four-figure contract. Um, and
How did that
so
happen? What?
I,
What? Seriously, I want to know, how does this happen? I want to make this happen for me.
yeah, and I think a lot of people do. And I think what I can tell people is that first, learn business, learn marketing, learn how to structure your business, and then just be confident in yourself. People want what you have. That's why they're paying you
Mm,
as a photographer. They're not paying you just to take pictures. Because if that was the case, they would just, ask their brother, or, ask their nephew or sister or mother just to take their pictures. You have a skill. And to be able to market that skill, not in a manipulative way, but in an authentic, real way where you show the value of what you provide, people are going to be like, okay, cool, great. I said
Mm.
no to a lot of people. I like, and that was really scary as a beginning businesswoman because I was like, in the beginning, everyone's like, no, you have to get as many jobs as possible. I had already done that in 2019 and I was fed up with it. I was like,
Mm.
that is no way to make a business. If you want to, do photography as a job, you got to be paid for it. So, definitely I learned so much. I was able to actually dedicate the time to, really talk to people, talk like network, figure out business things. Again, I made a lot of really dumb choices. And if I were to ever do it again, I would definitely not be doing what I did back in March. But I
What's
also,
what's I was gonna
yep.
say, what's your big you said you made dumb choices and mistakes. Like what was
Mhm.
like the biggest mistake that you learned from?
Over promising,
Hmm.
thinking that I wasn't enough and that I had to over deliver on all of these different aspects for even like say $2,000. Yeah, that's a lot of money. But when realistically, when you look at the amount of work, when you look at the amount of things that you do and you're providing for them, it's not that much. And the more you charge, the less you actually have to provide. That's one thing. And it's not saying like, oh, you're cheating them out of, stuff. You have to be good enough at what you do to be able to charge. And that comes with experience, it comes with confidence, and it also comes with just um, knowledge
Hmm.
about yourself and your craft. I'm not telling anyone who's like, just picked up a camera to just go start charging, $2,000 for a portrait shoot. Like, no, like
How did you get so good so fast?
I practice a lot during COVID because I didn't know anyone. I practiced on myself at my house. I got two kittens, so I started practicing on them as well inside my house. I practiced with like things from the grocery store just inside my house with a window. Um, yeah, you just have to practice. And, everyone's like, okay, take a photo every day. I took thousands of photos every day.
Wow.
And I can honestly say I am not a portrait photographer. I do not like it. And that's why I wasn't good at it. And I think most people, when they're trying to build a business, they're trying to fit themselves into what they think
Hmm.
photography business should be. They're doing senior shots, they're doing baby photos, they're doing, engagements. But if your heart's not into it, if that doesn't excite you to go do, like, yeah, you're not going to do very well.
See, I like your shots. I like landscape photography. I like seeing what the world has to offer. I like traveling. I like getting to places that are hard to get to because it also comes with a story. It's
Absolutely.
not just a photo, but it's like, oh, how hard it was to get there. It's just so much more rewarding than making people sit in a chair and say cheese or something, right? Um,
I mean, yeah, I love it. I did boudoir photo shoots, so that was really great to
oh,
work
that's
with
cool.
people. More of the empowerment side versus just like photo side. But
Mhm.
like you, I'm like, get me outside.
Mm. Yeah, it's just really rewarding. And so one thing that comes to my mind is I just said like I have an old Canon, but I end up just taking my iPhone 14 Pro most of the places. Like it's easy to point and shoot. What what is it about spending a few grand or whatever it is on that Nikon you use or the Canon you recommended? What is it about investing in something like that compared to the smartphones these days?
Well, that's a good question. And I'm just going to say that in the beginning, I was like, why did I just buy the super fancy camera as a beginner? That made no sense to me. But I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm committing. And that money, and when people have money invested, they work harder, especially me. If money's on the line, I work hard and I'm a hard worker. So I think what people don't realize is that when you're doing something with something that has limited capacity, you're only going to get as good as what you can do on that. And sure, yes, phones are amazing. Phones are incredible. If we could take the algorithms of cell phones, like the iPhone camera, and put it in a Sony camera, holy freaking moly, that would be so good. But what people don't realize is that you're not just paying for like a professional camera. You're investing in the capabilities that someday you will be able to know and use that camera to get what you want.
Mm.
I definitely don't know how to use my camera fully. And I'm that kind of person who sleeps with her camera next to her in bed. It's fine. I still don't know how to use it fully. But yet, having such an incredibly powerful tool in my hand makes me want to learn more and push myself more because I know it's possible.
Mm.
I know I can do it. I know I'm capable with the tools that I have to be beyond what I could do. So I think that's like one thing with people, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I should start with a lower price camera or something like that." If you're serious, if you're like truly serious about your craft and about doing photography, get a decent camera,
Mm.
because that's going to challenge you, the artist, the photographer, to really actually start realizing all the amazing things you're able to do. It's actually incredible how you're like, "Oh, I didn't know I could do this." Now you start like experimenting with it. You start like realizing like, "Oh, I'm going to start doing it more." And it changes your artistic output, and it changes you as an artist. And
Mm.
that growth is something that I will always chase as an artist. That's something every artist should chase, is growth, because as you learn, you're going to change. You're not going to get stuck. You're not going to be, banging your head against that proverbial wall of, "Oh no."
Mm. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And so basically what I'm hearing is, yes, the iPhone 14 that we're on right now, super powerful, great tool. But if you invest in a camera, like we'll just say like the one you have, is the capabilities are just far and beyond like
Well, think of the
what we can
raw
understand.
files. When,
Yeah.
for me, a lot of what I do with photography is editing. I do a lot of composite work because I love it.
Mm.
And I can't edit with, even though iPhones do shoot raw, it's not the same. You don't get the same output. You don't have the same capabilities. I think it was the photographer Ansel Adam, and
Mhm.
Adam, I don't forget his name. Really amazing photographer. But he said the best camera is the one in your hand.
Mhm.
It really doesn't matter the price. What matters is the one in your hand that you are easily able to use to get what you want. And if your iPhone can get what you want, perfect. That's
Mm.
that's the only one you need. But for me, this is not this is not good enough.
um okay, so do you use like Lightroom or Photoshop? How do you do your
Mhm.
editing? Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
go to Adobe.
For all those listening, I did not use YouTube to learn. I just played around with it a lot.
You're a self-starter. This is like
I
super
can't learn on YouTube.
impressive.
I can't learn. I tried, and then I'm like busy Googling everything that they mentioned in YouTube. And then yeah, I
You
can't
should
do it.
give your own YouTube tutorials. Do you do
I mean, I
that?
do. I give bougie editing. So what I do is I tell people to bring their booze to my editing sessions, which are Zoom sessions. And then we drink and we edit and we have a great time.
That is a great idea. That's a really good idea. I genuinely mean that. I think that would be a lot of fun. And like, do you give people like all a specific photo and they all have to learn that one photo, or how's that work?
It depends. Sometimes I've given them like just JPEG files and they can edit along with me so that they
Mhm.
can follow the steps with me. Sometimes I've been doing recently AI intro sessions where I teach people how I go about bringing humanity and, excuse me, human touch to the technology. I want to like humanize the technology because right now that's not happening as much. And I think that is something we really need to do as humans, as this tech boom is happening all around us, is we need to humanize it. We need to really bring the human aspect, empathy, bring heart to technology. And that's what I've been doing with most of my recent bougie editing. And why I call it bougie is not just because of the booze, but because there are people who are like calling, I think, chic or trendy bougie. I think
Mhm.
that's like a term.
Mhm.
I spell it with a Z instead of a G. So it's just like, it's bougie. We're being fancy.
You're a great businesswoman, that's for sure. I can
I
really
tried.
appreciate that. And the funny thing is, though, is when I'm thinking about talking about cameras and stuff, is everybody says it's not the camera, it's the lenses. one, do you agree? And two, are there lenses that you would recommend somebody that's looking for a camera tomorrow, like one or two of them that are must haves?
It goes to your sense of style and what you're doing. But for me, yes, I think the lenses really matter because it's like buying a really fancy car and then putting crap tires on it.
Mm,
You're not going to go anywhere really well. You're basically putting a handicap on yourself,
mm,
on your tools by not getting good glass. And I think for most people, they're like, oh, but I want to have like as big of a range as possible so because I just don't know what to do. No, I mean, if you don't know what to do, you got to learn first what is available. And so that way, when you buy like a prime lens or when you buy one single lens, you really learn it. And then you can decide, do I like it or do I not? Because when you start buying like all of these kit lenses, you're not going to like really anything, in my opinion. Or you're going to like realize, oh, I really like the ability to zoom in versus shooting wide. Guess what? You just wasted a couple $100, even on a kit lens, that you could have put towards something else.
mm.
So to me, I'm a person of extremes. I don't like middle range lenses, and I know that for myself. I've always liked super wide, like 12 to 14 millimeter lenses, or I like super zoomed in. And I'm not talking 100 or 200. I'm talking 400 to 600. Um, and even for portrait work, I like shooting portraits at 600 millimeters.
Mm.
When you look at animal wildlife photographers, like some incredible like wildlife photographers, you're like, that is so dreamy. That is beautiful. Like the blurriness, the bokeh behind them, like gorgeous. Why aren't people doing that for human portraits?
Mm.
I do. So I think it adds a lot more to the landscape when you shoot, because I shoot people outside. I don't really shoot them in studios. It bridges my landscape style to my portrait work when I use landscape lenses. So it's really up to people what they want to shoot and how they want to like what kind of imagery they want, because those lenses are going to dictate that no matter what subject it is, those lenses will dictate the kind of like the look. Yeah.
If you're listening to this and you want the coolest photo on LinkedIn, call Rachel. She'll get you the coolest headshot. That
I mean,
is
yeah, if you want to pay me like 2 grand.
that is well, sounds like you're worth it to me. And so, can I assume one more thing with the equipment is tripod? I assume you use a tripod consistently.
Not really. So
No.
because I travel so much, um, I find tripods really cumbersome. Because when I get to a place, I'm shooting, I'm in I'm in the zone. I am zipping everywhere. I'm finding different comps. I'm trying to photograph with different things. Like I don't really plan as much as you do, or as much as most of my friends do.
Apparently not.
Because I go to a place and I'm like, okay, I am here. What can I get? What is the world telling me? Like, how can I experience this place fully and capture it? So also most of my tripods break, although I have found one that I really, really like. I'm not endorsed by them, so this is not sponsored, but I really love the really right tripods. I
Okay.
have gone through Gitso, like those $1,000 tripods. I've gone through Run Photo. I've gone to Peak Design. All of them have broken on me within like a week or a couple
Wow.
weeks or a couple
Wow.
trips. Really right so far has been the best compact, lightweight, because I'm small, so I really am aware of weight and size. They have been all around the best one so far for me.
Okay. This is great information. I thought you would have said, yeah, I use it a lot because of your zoomed in work, right? When I zoom in, I get a little shaky or whatever, but maybe it's just me.
No, I shake all the time, which means I am limited in how I shoot and what I shoot. But once you know that about yourself, you just work around it. Uh, and yeah, I think a lot of people are like, oh, I need a tripod. But like travel photography, especially like wildlife photography,
Mhm.
in my opinion, you want to be able to move like the animals.
Hmm.
You want to be able to go freely without cumbersome things, without constantly trying to like juggle many balls. Yeah, so for me, like tripods are great in low light and stuff like that. And if you have the patience, awesome. But that's not my style personally. And I know that about myself. And so I don't even have a strap on my camera. Don't tell people that. Like, I don't even have anything strapped to my camera. I hold it, and I have fallen down cliffs. I have definitely been in some super hairy situations where my feet are not on the ground. That camera never left my hand. Like, I have a death grip on my cameras.
Let's talk about one of those situations. Give me like the scariest situation you've ever been in. I want to hear it.
Well, one of them was okay. So, and maybe I shouldn't say this on a recorded thing. Anyways, in Hawaii, there's this trail, in Hawaii, and it's very, very steep. It's basically like maybe a foot wide path, and from that path, it is just straight down thousands of feet. It's incredible when you go there. But when I went, it was really muddy. And, there was one little section that had a few little very steep switchbacks. And so, I had, going down, hit some slippery stuff. I start rolling. And I'm telling you, this is a place where if you start rolling, you basically die because it is sheer everywhere. But I was able to, what do you call it? Spider, like get all of my extremities out and stop myself before I died. But everyone else who was with me were just like, holy. Yeah. I was definitely shaky for the rest of that day.
Oh my
I was
God.
basically crawling on hands and knees for the rest of that day.
I have a fear of heights, so
Yeah.
that would drive me. And I want to be up in the first place, so I don't have to worry about that. But wow, that's
Yeah.
terrifying.
It was very terrifying.
And you're talking about wildlife photography. Give me some
Mhm.
stories. Like, what are some really cool stories about you trying to hunt down like a specific animal to get a photo and stuff?
Well, I haven't done that much wildlife photography. I really just started getting into it this past year. Um, my first like real experience for wildlife was in Antarctica. Um, I was channeling my Paul Nicklin, where I got a Sony camera. I got like my 600 mil lens. Well, the 200 to, well, yeah, 200 to 600. I could not afford the 600 prime. Still can't afford it. I really want it, but it's a goal. And I was just photographing those penguins. I was photographing penguins because oh my gosh, they're so amazing. South Georgia Island on the way to Antarctica was probably one of my favorite places in the world.
Mm.
And I know people are like, oh, it's penguins, but I'm like, have you seen a penguin? I know many people have seen them in the zoos, but they are so incredibly clumsy on land. And yet they're like graceful in the water. And you see like these king penguins who look like emperor penguins, with their yellow and black and white suits. They're so comical. It was so much fun. And yeah, it was just amazing.
Did you go down to Antarctica like a specific time of year,
Mhm.
knowing that they were? Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so I went in January for about 3 weeks, and I knew
You went to
that January
Antarctica for 3 weeks. Like, where are you sleeping?
in a boat.
Like,
We
and
went
in a
to the
boat?
yeah, Falkland Islands, South Georgia Island, and then Antarctica, and then back up. It was a long, long boat ride. Really seasick for all of the days at sea,
Wow.
but totally worth it.
That's absolutely incredible. I'm like super jealous about this. Like, part of me is really jealous about this. The other part is like, I don't know about three weeks and sleeping on a boat, but
No, it was honestly like people are like, but it's Antarctica. It's a bunch of ice. I'm like, you don't understand. And like, there's really nothing to compare it to, but it's so beautiful just to be able to be surrounded by like the sound of silence, to be like hearing orcas out of your window
wow.
at night, a pot of 8 orcas just like swimming next to you. You're just like, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a magical place. And anyone who goes, it's just like it changes them.
I mean, I would genuinely love to go. I'm one of those people that once I get like an idea in my head or a place I really want to go to, it's like I try to find a way. It's like, why not? Right. I want to go experience something and have a story to tell.
Mhm.
What's one of the places that you've been to that's just you got the craziest story of like how hard it was to get there?
That's really hard.
You've been everywhere.
Yeah. Well, it's just After the fact, I'm like, wow, that was pretty hairy. But during it, I was just like, this is fun.
What
Like there's a
place?
couple of places in like Peru that were kind of sketchy. Definitely when I went to Mongolia, I was on a solo expedition with National Geographic. And
You went with National Geographic?
yeah, well, they were helping me. They were my in-country contacts and
That is freaking.
helping me
How do you get
everywhere.
connected to these people? That's just absolutely incredible. That's amazing.
But actually, okay, one of the coolest ones though. So I was in South Patagonia. I met a National Geographic paleontologist, so a person who studies dinosaurs. We hit it off, and he was like, "Hey, we would love to have you on one of our expeditions." I was like, yeah." This is back in 2019, so newbie, had no idea what I was doing. They're just like, "Yeah, we'll take care of like your tent and food if you get out here." I was like, "I'm coming." So I'm out in like the middle of Patagonia, Argentina. We are not near anything for hours. We have generators. We're sleeping in tents right by this like tiny, tiny river. The weather is just incredibly harsh. Like you're exposed to the elements, and these guys, these paleontologists and their students, they're drilling, they're jackhammering. It's not toothpick archaeology. This is paleontology, dinosaur bones encased in rock.
Mm,
And here I am with my camera. I'm like, you guys are doing great.
oh my
um,
God.
but it was so hard, not because the shooting was hard, but because the weather was just the wind, the heat, the no shade, the just exposure you have to the elements on top of like really hard physical labor really is like difficult, and it's a challenge, and it made me respect paleontologists so much
Mm.
by what they do just to dig up old bones,
I
which was
was
also really cool.
Yeah, so it's funny you say that because last summer in August, that was actually my wife's Christmas present. It was I got her an excursion to go to Montana to dig up dinosaur bones because she's a massive fan of dinosaurs, loved them as a kid. Jurassic Park's her favorite movie. So that was one of the coolest things. Just outside of Glacier, Two Medicine Dinosaur, we got to dig up dinosaur bones and stuff, and that was one of the
Oh my
coolest
gosh,
things we
that's
did.
amazing.
Yeah, that was really cool. Maybe we could talk offline real quick about that person that you met. I would love to actually speak with them. If you still do talk with them, I would absolutely die to talk to them. So we can talk about that later. Um, but yeah, your stories are incredible. You're just naming all these places like Antarctica and Patagonia and Peru, and it's just like
And this is just me
Mongolia. Oh my god! Like what the frick? Like Mongolia is not a place that's like really easy to get to, right? Like how was traveling to Mongolia?
I mean, getting there was fine. Traveling in country is a lot harder. So one thing that's really cool about Mongolia is that they don't really have roads to a lot of places.
Mhm.
Um, Instead, you have to get local drivers who've been driving and traversing in those plains their entire lives, and they drive you over non-roads,
Mhm.
just judging by landmarks, because the land shifts so suddenly and so sporadically and very often that there's no way that they can take the same route twice. They just have to know where they are geographically, and it's like, yeah, it's actually really incredible how they navigate. There, of course, there are some roads, but some of the places I went, we were driving on non-roads for days. It
Mm.
was great. Um, yeah, it
What's
was
a
awesome.
place that you haven't gone to yet that you're just kind of dying to get to?
Well, Turkey,
There you go.
definitely. I would love to get into like photojournalism and documentary work. But that's a very hard line to find as a photographer, and to be paid for it, that's even harder. So right now I'm not equipped to do that, but
Mm.
I would love to explore the Middle East. I probably shouldn't say this, but there's an island off the coast of Yemen called Socotra, I believe. It's incredible. It has a lot of I forget the name of the word, but it's a lot of biodiversity and plants and animals that are only found on that island. They're
Mm.
not found anywhere else in the world. And I want to get there. because it looks amazing.
What's stopping
And
you?
yeah, well, money. It's really expensive.
Yeah, but who knows, right? Do you take some of these trips thinking like I'm gonna get there, I'm gonna spend the money knowing I'll make it back by what I shoot over there?
That's always a gamble. In 2019, yeah, that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
But now I made a promise to myself I'm not going to work for free. Um, Last year I did kind of like a balance, a hybrid of like working, then getting paid afterwards, and then being paid to go work. It's definitely a very hard balance. And, it's there's no right answer. And I think you're constantly going to have to be pivoting if you do want to do like travel photography and stuff like that. Obviously, there's some pretty concrete ways that you can do it that a lot of influencers will just sell you on. And yeah, that is a way. But I know for myself, that is not my way. That's not what I want to do. That is not the kind of, work or even like upfront work that I want to do because it's not really me. So yeah, it's just a matter of like, what do you want to do and
So
aligning your actions to do that.
do you take trips for yourself to get photos, or do you take trips knowing you're going to get paid for photos that you take? I'm trying to figure that out.
Oh, sorry.
No,
um,
I'm trying to grasp that.
I don't I don't take trips anymore that aren't paid for yet. Last year for
You're a
like
baller.
Australia, yeah. Last year I sold NFTs that funded my trips. Um, so that was really great. I was really, really I'm very, very lucky to have been able to do that. And, going forward, maybe I might take some trips where I fund them myself and try to hope I get paid for it. But
Mhm.
I'm not in that place financially yet. So maybe
Right.
sometime.
It sounds like you're killing it though. And there's a few places I do want to ask you about. One of them being Iceland. And I got connected with Ryan Newber last year, who I had on my podcast, also known as the Straw Hat Backpacker. His story sounds, I mean, a little, it's different than yours, but a little similar as far as him just grabbing a camera and traveling. And look at him now. He's in Iceland with his own business, leading the glacier guides. And the funny thing is, I'm scrolling through his videos on ice pick journeys, and I believe I see you.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's my wife and I are going there in a month and a half as part of our honeymoon. And Ryan's going to give us a guide in the glaciers. And my wife sees the videos of zip lining on the glaciers. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, well, that looks cool. I have a fear of heights, but we'll see. I don't know whatever. And then I see who it is, and it's you. And I was like, I just saw this last night. I was like, there's no way. I was like, I'm talking to her tomorrow. I had no clue that was you. So when were you over in Iceland? When was that?
I think that one was, I think in October.
Okay.
I've been to Iceland about 7 times. I love
So
Iceland.
only 7 times. Yeah.
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 Yeah, 7 times in the past like 2 years.
Oh my
But
God.
you're gonna have such an incredible time with Ryan. Ryan and Mike, they're both so much fun, so funny, very knowledgeable. You are in safe hands with them. And I don't say that lightly because I think safety is a really big thing that people need to be aware of. And that's what really gets people when they travel for so long is constantly having to take care of their safety. Um, but with Ryan and Mike, if you're able to meet Glacier Mike as well, who lives up in Hof, Ryan's business partner, they're they're wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And I'm scared of heights too. I don't let people give me piggyback rides, but I did that and it was so much fun.
It was awesome.
So much fun. Like
So
go down that zip line. You better run and jump.
I was wondering that. Do you go across the whole thing, or do you go halfway and kind of got to like military crawl or whatever, like across the rest of it? How does that work?
It depends on how much slack they give you, but yeah, you can get to the middle and then
Mhm.
you're gonna have to pull yourself either way. So once you jump, there's no going back.
There is no going back. Okay. Well, how deep is this crevice? Is it like massive or
It
not
was about
that
60,
bad?
60 meters
Which is what, 180
times
feet?
3. Yeah, it was like 200 feet. I mean, you look over and you're like, oh my God. Which is why in the video you see me looking up.
Yeah. Oh, I see you also kind of like stuck. And that's what I was like. See, I did zip lining in Turkey, but I
Ooh.
cruise the whole time. You know, you just get on and you
Mhm.
just go, you're not
Yep.
stopping. Oof. I think something might happen inside of me if I just stopped over like a 200-foot drop in a glacier. I mean, it's beautiful, right? Like I I I got to rappel and climb glaciers in Alaska last year,
Mhm.
which was one of the greatest things I've ever done. And for me to look over the edge of the glacier and rappel down it, like I have such a bad fear of heights for the most part, but for me to just get there and just like I'm gonna do this and I did it was just kind of like what happened. I was so caught up in where I was in the moment, and I'm hoping if we sign up for this zip line thing that I just get that feeling again and be like, ah, F it, I'm here once, I'm in Iceland, just go do this. But we'll see. It's weird. It's like a paralyzing type of fear that I have of heights. I'm trying to conquer it, but yeah. So any other tips and tricks for Iceland that I should be aware of before we head there in just over a month?
Just over a month. That's March, right? Okay.
It would be the
So
beginning of April. Beginning of April.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely just wear layers.
Mhm.
I say being waterproof, windproof is more than having bulk, just because weather changes so crazy
Mhm.
in Iceland.
Mhm.
Um, and being windproof and waterproof will keep you warmer, in my opinion. One thing I really recommend, and a lot of people don't know this, but you know those hot hand things that you can put in your gloves?
Yeah.
They're like good for like 4 hours.
Mhm.
They make them that are bigger, that are hot, like actually hot for 18 hours.
Wow. Okay.
I know. And I actually put them in my pockets because I don't wear gloves when I photograph, even in like cold weather.
Makes sense.
I don't really wear gloves because, camera.
Mhm.
Um, but having them in your pockets or having them up in like your chest or something really helps keep your body warm. If you can keep your core warm, it doesn't matter really about your hands. Like you can handle cold hands.
Mm.
Um, so I definitely recommend those because they're bigger, which means they actually work. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
being waterproof, windproof is really important.
I can't wait to go in the
You're
glacier
gonna have so much
caves.
fun.
I cannot wait. So here's a fun fact. I went to Iceland maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago,
Mhm.
and we did kind of like the whole south thing, which we're gonna kind of do again. I went with my dad back then, and we did see the Northern Lights, which was incredible. Um,
Oh,
the one thing that's been eating me up is the fact I did not go into a glacier cave. It was not part of the tour that we did, and I was like, God, I really wish I can do that. And the fact that I'm going back, I'm bringing my wife now. We just got married a few months back, and the fact that I'm going to a glacier cave is like mission accomplished. Like I said, once I get something in my mind, it's like I need to go find a way to do it. So I genuinely can't wait to do that. And I could not believe it. I saw you. I was like, hold on a second, that's her. That's her. She was just there. What the heck? Um, but yeah, another place for whatever reason that I saw you been to that's kind of like floating in my head. And I jokingly say I want to go there, but I'm kind of serious about it too, is Greenland. And I
I
saw
actually haven't been there.
you went, oh, you have not been to Greenland. I thought you've been to Greenland. What about, so
Those
what's
are all
stopping you?
AI pieces.
Those, okay, so explain that. That's going to lead us right into my next topic then. They're
Okay.
AI pieces. Okay, so talk to me. I thought you went to Greenland, but you said the AI pieces. Explain that.
Yeah. So one thing that happened last year was I have no right, but I had a creative crisis. I was getting into a rut. I was feeling like I wasn't good enough at photography. I started to like lose the joy of photographing, thinking I wasn't, going to amount to much, all that fun stuff. Um, and just getting like bored with what I was doing.
Hmm.
And so at that time, people were telling me, okay, Rachel, actually, it was Robert Downey from Australia. He was like, Rachel, you got to build a business on something you can easily replicate and grow from.
Hmm.
And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you can't always, guarantee blow your socks off images from a place, no matter how confident you are. Like, you cannot guarantee that just because, weather conditions, I don't know, anything could go wrong. Like you can't guarantee those kinds of things. And I'm very picky when it comes to images. Like you say, you look at my Instagram. Yes, I post a lot of things from different places, but I've traveled. I want to say I travel about 90% more than what you see on Instagram. I do not share that much on Instagram. And because it's like some places I just totally don't get images. So AI was starting to like become more on my radar through NFTs. And I was like, I'm interested. Not really sure what it is. And then I started getting into it. I was like, wow, I'm able to create images I've never been able to create before. This is something I can do when I'm not traveling. And that was like a light bulb to me because I can't always travel, especially not how much as I was before. It's expensive. It's not sustainable to build, my business based on what I can do when I travel. Like that's just not me. So I was like, okay, how can I do this? Is this even something I want to pursue? So I started getting into it, and I know a lot of people are like, well, what do you use? I use Midjourney. It's a bot that you can add to Discord. I have it in my own private server so people don't see what I make. But you can also do it publicly through the Midjourney Discord yourself. And I started really trying to delve into what is this technology? How can I bring myself into it? And that's kind of where I tell people in my bougie editing sessions is AI cannot think for itself. Just like a camera can't think for itself. A camera can't take a beautiful shot without the human. A paintbrush, no matter how, rare those paint bristles are made or whatever, like a paintbrush, a camera, AI bot, those are all tools that human artists, are able to use to create whatever's in our hearts and mind. And I think that's something that really spoke to me because with AI, I'm able to have this conversation between technology and myself on what I'm trying to communicate and what the technology is interpreting that as. And I have to use it. I have to work with it. I have to like iterate it. And, in the beginning, I used it as just elements to help with my composite work with photography. Now I do have fully AI work as well as composites with photographs. So like, obviously because I'm a photographer, like it just kind of meshes. For anyone else who's out there listening, like AI to me is something that has taken away my physical restraint to create art that suddenly opens doors to a whole new world of creativity, one that I could never do. Like I went to art school as a little kid. Like we learned how to draw, we learned how to like watercolor and oil and ceramics, all that fun stuff. I know I cannot draw for my life. If humanity's existence rested on me drawing something that looked realistic, hell no. I'm sorry. You're not allowed to swear on this
No, go
podcast.
for it.
But like I cannot draw. And so that's prevented me from actually exploring certain creative avenues. Now with AI, I'm totally able to create things that one, I might not be able to photograph myself, like Greenland, or two, I can do it anywhere that I am, no matter the time, no matter the location, no matter the weather, no matter really my budget, although you do have to pay for it. So it does kind of matter, but it's not nearly as expensive at traveling. And so I'm able to kind of explore places. And lastly, I know this is a lot. Working with AI, yes, people are like, oh, that's lazy art. I don't think so, because the more you create, kind of like burst mode in photography, the more you create, the more work it actually is to actually get to something you actually like.
Hmm.
And that is self-curation. And I am a huge supporter of any creative person to self-curate themselves more. Just because you can do it and just because it kind of looks cool doesn't mean it's really worth anything. And you as the artist, why people buy your work, why people hire you for jobs, is your ability to self-curate the actual good gems of images, of files, of, like portrait pics, like that self-curation is really the value that you bring as a professional. So yeah, I can generate a lot more images, arguably, that are cool with AI. I definitely do not sell all of them. I do not I do not just think like, oh, I'm suddenly a great artist with AI. I'm definitely still learning. Yeah.
Okay, so I get a few questions based on
Okay.
this. So I'm pretty versed in Adobe, right? So in Adobe, you file, new, create the canvas size that you want, blank canvas. Are you starting with blank canvases when you create AI? Are you starting from like a photo that you took that was just like missing a few things? How do you even start with AI?
So in the beginning, I tried to keep my AI very similar to my photographs because that's what I knew. That's like what so I would try to describe my photographs to the AI bot so that it could create AI images that were like my photographs.
What do you mean describe? Like, are you talking to it? You typing thing? Like, how does that
So sorry.
work? I
So
don't
what
even know.
Midjourney is like is that you write in a prompt, you write like a sentence, or you can write a string of words. There's a lot of musicians who have been putting their lyrics into the Midjourney bot, and they've created images from their lyrics. And the AI bot will take those words and generate, whatever it is you're trying to
Oh shit.
describe. Where I see this technology's limitations right now, because yes, AI is really powerful, but it's not perfect, is that when you're writing your prompt, when you're writing your words, you can have something very clear in your mind and you're like, wow, okay, done, done, done. I'm very detailed. What you get from the AI bot is probably going to be so different than what you had in your head.
Hmm.
And this is what brought me out of my creative rut because it suddenly it showed me how I was communicating with my words and how those words could be interpreted. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is awesome. I love it. Like,
Yeah.
hello. This is
Yeah.
not just like a camera that I can point and shoot. And I know exactly what I'm getting. AI is that sort of like wild card. And I know that doesn't speak to a lot of people, but it spoke to me a lot. So
It's like taking a psychedelic with a paintbrush in your hand, right?
exactly, exactly. It's like you never know. And then you suddenly are like, I really love that. I'm going to redo that. I'm going to go down this Alice in Wonder rabbit hole on this thought process, on this prompt, or things like that. So when I say I was putting in things that were describing my photographs, I was trying to describe my photographs.
Mm.
I realized that was not helpful. I was like, I'm going to keep my photographs very separate than my AI work. So I started to delve deeper into things I couldn't do with photography yet. So, like Greenland, I've never been to Greenland, but it's on my bucket list.
Me
And
too.
so I'm like, okay, what can I can sort of like create that gets me to that place of Greenland where I can manifest it and someday hopefully go photograph it. And it's helped me actually like work on composition, on how I would, actually frame my shot whenever I go. So it's like it's been really great tool.
Wow. That's just absolutely fascinating. This is something I really have to look more into, especially with AI is obviously becoming a thing for life in general.
Join
I
my goofy editing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a really good time. I mean, there's no
It
question
is
I will
really
learn
fun.
a lot from you. That actually sounds like awesome. I'm watching a reel that you posted September 13, 2022. It's a stationary photo, absolutely beautiful, but the waterfall in the middle is moving. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So we got the music playing. So how was that created? Just a stationary photo, absolutely beautiful, but the water in the middle is moving on the waterfall. How do you create
Mhm.
something like that?
So I know a lot of people do this in After Effects. I'm not that technical, even though I use technology a lot in my career. I'm really tech dumb. I actually use my phone and I
What?
use the app Motion Leap. It's
Okay.
very easy. It's very, very affordable. Um, if anyone wants to use it, I totally recommend it just for any photograph, really. You can animate things, you can add things, you can, make things move in the directions you want. Like that's where I do it. And they actually are able to export your videos or your photos turned into cinemagraphs in like 4K.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of fun. You just do it right on your phone. So obviously it's limited to how like much you can do with your finger.
Right.
But you can zoom in, of course, and get pretty dang close to where you need it to be. And you can just do it on your phone. I've just done it like when I'm not connected to the internet, when I'm like on an airplane or like when I'm like waking up, I can just like animate something real quick. I've been doing this for years, just having fun with it, never really doing much with it. But it's something that many photographers can do without learning, animation.
That's so cool. Can you do anything with it besides just posting it on your Instagram line? Can you sell stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. As
Really?
long as it's your photographs.
Yeah.
Like I've sold definitely cinemagraphs, which are animated photographs. I've sold those before as well as NFTs. And it's fun. I mean, we all like moving pictures, so yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely fascinating. I mean, I have to ask, I'm sure you've gotten this question before, is like stepping away from the AI for a second and the NFT for a second, just back to your raw skill and your raw photos. Is there a photo or like maybe a set of photos or anything that comes to mind of like you were just super proud to have captured that?
Um, yes, so last year I went to Iceland. I went up north with a friend. She's lovely, absolutely lovely. And you might meet her because she is friends with Ryan.
Excellent.
Uh, and we went up to this waterfall and we didn't really time it right because we went in the middle of the day, like, kiss of death. It was supposed to be cloudy. And it just wasn't speaking to me. It was like one of those like super popular waterfalls. And I just like, I wasn't feeling inspired to take the same shot that everyone else normal. So I was looking at the wall, the basalt volcanic wall across the river, which was like, I want to say like 500 feet, 1,000 feet away. And I had my 600 lens on. And I was like, I wonder what it looks like over there. So I started zooming in over there. And oh my gosh, I'm typically a landscape person, but zooming in on that basalt wall, I saw color. I saw shapes,
Mm.
and I saw all of this little like foliage and kind of the marks of time on this wall. And I started snapping pictures. And when I brought them into my computer and started editing them, I started realizing there's so much more color in the rock than I even saw with my own two eyes. So that was really exciting. And I called them volcano abstracts. Um, Actually, one of my pin pictures, the blue one on my Instagram at the top of my profile, that is as from that spot. That is a super zoomed in view of a massive rock wall. Yeah.
This one I'm looking
Yeah.
at right now, August 5th, 2022. I never would have guessed that.
Exactly. And that's to me that, people are like, oh, that's cool, kind of like abstracty work. They don't understand that is rock. That is 16 million year old volcanic rock that I didn't add color to. I just enhanced the color that was there.
Now, what about this one? Is this real? I know
No,
people listening to
no.
me are probably like, "What is he talking about?" I'm just. It looks like a Diamond Beach. Looks like a little thing on Diamond Beach, right? Like a piece of ice or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
with
you
you,
ever look
I
at
gotta
my
ask. I gotta
hashtag.
ask you, is this real or not? Because sometimes they are real. You're like, how is that real?
So if you look at my hashtags, I'm always a parent. I never try to sell something that's AI or composite as a true photograph. And I think people really need to know that. It doesn't take away the value of it. In my opinion, it just adds to the value. It distinguishes this work versus other work. So I'm always upfront about it. If you look at the hashtags, although I don't think I added hashtags with that one, most of my posts have hashtags and it will say composite or
Okay,
AI or
got you,
Midjourney.
got you.
I will always try to say, or Sony. If it says Sony, then it's a photograph. But yeah.
Okay. And as we kind of like wind down here a little bit, I also really want to know for someone that is like, as much as I consider myself an amateur photographer, I think I do have a lot of good photos. I remember talking with Ryan Newburn about this. Like, one, how do you know if something's like a really good photo and like somebody would perhaps buy it? And two, like, what are your options if you're like, this is a freaking awesome photo? I don't know what to do with it. How can I sell this and perhaps make money on it? What do you do?
So I tell a lot of people this. I tell them it's better to do things right than right now.
Hmm.
And patience is something that we all struggle with social media because we see people having these wins. We see trends. We see, people skyrocketing. And we're like, we want to be on that. But putting on blinders is really important. And I think having patience is even more important. So when people are like, I don't know if someone's going to pay money for this, the biggest question you should ask is, would you pay money for it? Because if you aren't willing to pay money for your own work, then you definitely aren't going to be a confident, I guess, salesperson
Hmm.
who's able to sell their work to someone else. Like for me, this is where that self-curation comes in, especially with AI, because, everything's cool, but, I won't pay for everything that I create, even if it's cool. And so, really objectively looking at your art and be like, would I pay money for this? Because ultimately, it doesn't matter other people. There is always a market. There are always going to be a person who has the same, thoughts as you, who has money, who would be able to throw it at your art. It's just a matter of you doing the work, you having that self-curation for yourself. Obviously, having that quality is really important, but you do not have to be the best. And I think a lot of people realize if you look at anyone who's successful, they're not like the best of the best. Like you can probably count on your hands, like other people who you would consider better, but they're confident enough and they're able to stand behind their art in a way that a lot of struggling people can't. So selling, you can sell them as prints. Linktree just offered a ability to add like digital assets that you can sell automatically through your Linktree, which is super awesome. No shipping, no handling, all that fun stuff. You can sell them as NFTs, but that is a much harder road. I don't recommend it to just everyone. If you do, you should reach out to me. I'm Rachel St. Wood on Twitter. I'll be happy to just discuss it with you guys. See your options, see if it's really a good fit for you. Prints, that's really hard. Definitely, like, you got to learn business first and, really be able to talk and connect with people. But also, I think the very last thing I will kind of like word vomit at people is if you're wanting to sell your work, you got to sell a story. And I'm not talking about some epic, heroic journey of a story with every single piece, but you have to understand that every single image that you have has to have a visual narrative that brings the viewer, that brings whoever you want to buy into something. Like you have to draw them in, you have to like pull them towards you. One is through the art, obviously, is that strong visual aspect, but then what else? What else can that person experience buying that piece of art from you? Because ultimately, what we're selling is art. At least that's what I want to do. I want to ultimately sell my photographs and my AI work as art. And that art has meaning, it has impact, it has a bigger cause than just, oh, I'm just going to put this on my bathroom wall. Like for me, like personally for me, I really want the people who I sell my artwork to really value and understand where I'm coming from, to understand where I'm going and to support me. I know that's a privileged thing to say. And a lot of people who are starting, if you're hearing this, you're like, I'm not at that place yet. Don't worry. If you know that's what you want to be, if you focus on that, everything you do is going to shape the people around you to actually want that from you. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to it, but
No, you're awesome. You clearly don't lack in confidence. Maybe I should have you back on another podcast to talk about confidence because
oh no, I'm like the worst person at confidence.
It's pretty. That's just pretty incredible. I can definitely see why you're successful at what you do. I've learned a lot talking to you, and there's going to be more questions I have for you, probably offline too, as far as like some of my photos and what to do with them or whatnot. But this has been an awesome journey with you. I got to ask, like, what's coming up in the near future for Rachel?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me on and for listening to me ramble for like 2
No,
hours.
it's not rambling. No, this is, I mean, it's your story and it's very informational. I'm super interested in this stuff and I'll listen to anybody talk about traveling and capturing photos like all the time. I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, travel makes you the best storyteller, in my opinion. It doesn't have to be international travel. Like, I know some incredible photographers and artists who've never left their state. So, like, anyone who's like, oh, I just don't have the budget to travel, that's okay. I mean, you just get good at what you do and it'll come. If you start, focusing on that's who I want to be, you got to make decisions on who you want to be, your future self, and not on your past self. But anyways, what am I going to do? There's so much. So I'm really involved in the NFT scene, and that kind of takes up all of my day and night. I love it there. I'm so curious at what this technology is bringing to artists and just just people all around the world. It's really beautiful to see. Of course, there's not so many great things with like businesses coming in, but as an artist, like a little artist in the space, it's incredible.
Have you been affected by Ethereum going down? I can I assume
Oh
that
yeah.
affects it does?
Sort of, not really. I know everyone's like, oh, we're in a bear market, which means not that many, people are buying or selling, or, the price of cryptocurrency is not very high.
Mhm.
That's like with every business. I mean, if you look at the stock market, like it goes high and low, and most people have some stocks, or some people don't, whatever. But no matter the market, you always have to be adjusting as any business person. That's the same with NFTs. The market will always be fluctuating. You just have to be able to pivot as it adjusts. Be like, okay, Ethereum's down. I need to price my work a little bit higher.
Mm.
Okay, so maybe like this is happening. Maybe I won't push sales right now. I will focus on something else. I will focus on building something else. I'll focus on maybe, going to a different blockchain, or I'll go into like collaborations versus just doing it on my own. Like there's so many things you can do. And this is where you have to be willing to give the time to learning business or NFTs, whichever pathway you choose. You have to be able to learn what's going on, to be able to speak the language. And for me, yeah, bear market, I don't really see a bear market. I've had amazing sales. I mean, sure, not as great as like some or how I hope, but a lot more than other people. And it's because I have put blinders on, and I do not let that negativity, like the lulls or the desperation out there, to really affect what I do. And I think that really calls to people. It shows that I'm not emotionally charged. I am very emotional. I cry all the time. But I'm not emotional when it comes to business, because business is not emotions. And when you make those decisions, being a leader means making a decision, making the decisions, just means that, okay, great. You made that decision. Now you can keep going. If it was the wrong decision, you pivot. If it's the right decision, you keep going. Like we're at the very beginning. We're in the .com days of Web3. And that means now's the best time to make those mistakes. It's like we're all going to make mistakes, like you said. I've made some incredibly horrible ones, but I still am pushing forward and taking them as lessons, because it doesn't matter. Yeah, I fucked up. Great. Let's keep going. I know now what not to do.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people will know when I say this: fail faster, because when you fail faster, you get to that success faster.
Fail faster. Wow,
Yeah,
I
fail
like
faster.
that.
You're going to
I
fail.
I like that.
Just do it faster. Yeah.
Wow. It takes a while. It took me a long time to realize that failure was just kind of like a way to kind of point you in the right direction, right? Whereas when you're younger, growing up, the last thing you want to do is fail, because you start feeling bad about yourself. Your self-esteem goes down. You get made fun of because, hey, you failed. But as you get older, it means you're trying things, and like I said, it points you in the right direction. Fail faster. That's freaking
Yeah, fail
awesome.
faster. I mean, I definitely get into those lulls of like, I'm a failure. I'm not going to amount to anything. Like, I definitely feel those.
It sounds like you have, like everybody, a case of imposter syndrome, like
Oh yes.
myself, like many others. But it's. I mean, that's honestly, it's great to hear that. In a way, it's great to hear, because for somebody that has just an incredible business, as you do, and the photography that you do, to see someone that's as successful as you are, literally just got, like I said, the timepiece artist of the week, and you have imposter syndrome, and we don't need to dive into that, but it's one of those things where it's like we all have those moments, right? And you just
Absolutely.
gotta push through it. You're human. But man, your art and your photography is freaking awesome. That's I've been following you for a while, and I was like, it's time for me to reach out and see if I can get you on. And then I'm so glad we can make this happen.
No, thank you so much. Like, honestly, it's really nice to connect with you, Ryan. Um, Definitely, like, this is what I love about Web3. I don't know if you followed me on Instagram before, but like we connected
Hmm.
over Twitter.
Hmm.
And this to me is the power of Web3. And people are like, what is Web3? And basically, what it is the socialization. I don't think I said that right. The socialization of technology. Because we think like, oh, Twitter's not like really social. Like it's called social media, but whatever. Like Instagram, definitely not really a social place. But Web3, which right now is happening mostly on Twitter, it is about socializing with people. It's about connecting with humans all around the world. And so this is like incredibly meaningful to me that you reached out and that you've spent this time listening to me like share my story.
No, I appreciate you saying yes and being a guest. I love hearing your story, and I'll probably have you back on, honestly, because you're someone that doesn't stop and you're continuing to move forward and have just crazy stories. And I can't wait to hear about more of these journeys, to talk about more of your artwork and your photography. And speaking of, I want to give people the opportunity to find you on all these platforms. So please pub yourself.
Yeah, well, if anyone's in New York in the middle of April, I will be in New York City at NFT New York. I'm actually helping with a gallery out there. I'll have my work out there as well. Definitely reach out to me on Twitter because I'm not as active on Instagram, but on Twitter, my name is Rachel, RachelStWood. And that's Rachel ST Wood. My DMs are open. I try to get back to everyone, but obviously it's kind of a chaotic mess over there, but I try to get back to everyone. And yeah, I'm on the Timepieces Community Council. I have my own community called the Artverse. I just published my first book for anyone who is struggling with, how to market and sell and do all that social media on Twitter. It's called What Now?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
fantastic. Look at you.
It's
You
kind of
adjusted. You pivoted. I'm gonna make my own book.
well, it was just like I was writing so many answers to people in the DMs because I try to help everyone as much as I can. And I realized I was just answering the same questions over and over again. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to make it something that's just, it's not going to be one of those like super perfect, refined, self-help books, but it is going to be observations that I've made in the space and mindsets that have helped me and information that I think a lot of artists are missing because I believe, you teach a man to fish and they eat for their entire lives.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not going to give you the answer, but I'm going to help you feel like you can make the best decision for yourself. So that was my goal
Perfect.
of the book.
Perfect. Well, I'll tell you what, everything you just said, I'm going to link in the show notes so people can scroll down, click to it, find you on any platform, find that book, get it. And I'll say cheers to that.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bougie.
Bougie cheers. Thank
Bougie.
you so much,
Rachel.
Ryan.
Thank you. Appreciate it.